Hey, welcome to this week's episode of State of Real Estate. I'm John Carissimo, and the show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. If you're thinking about starting or enhancing your real estate career, give us a call. The phone number is 813-928-0106, 813-928-0106. Today, we've got a great episode for you. We're talking about listing appointments. So listing appointments are a huge part of getting clients. It's really half of your business, if not more so. It could be a little bit less, but it's really making up half of what you need to know to get a client. You need to be able to work with buyers, get a buyer brokerage signature, and you need to be able to work with sellers and get listing appointments and get listing contracts signed. So in order to basically guarantee you're having business from your clients, you need one of these two documents. Now, we're talking about listing appointments today. So what a listing appointment is, this is going on an appointment. You're going out to meet a seller in their home to go survey their property and basically make your presentation to them why they should use you to list their property. And yes, you will have to make a presentation to them. I mean, sometimes it might be just as easy as to say, you know, we like you, we want to use you to sell our house, and they might be asking for business. But chances are, most of the time, they're going to at least need a little bit kind of pushing over the edge, a little bit to kind of just push them over the edge to get them to want to use you. And then at other times, too, it's going to be very competitive where they're interviewing multiple agents and they're going to be comparing you to other agents to see which one is the one that they want to use. So that's what our listing appointment is. Now, why do you want to do listing appointments? Why do you need to master this listing appointment concept? Well, the reason behind why you want to master listing appointments, and this comes from the National Association of Realtors, so another NAR statistic, is that for every buyer, it takes typically 24 hours of actual time on your part. So 24 hours of working time on your part, not 24 hours all of a sudden and then you're done. No, 24 hours of working time on your part to close a buyer. So that's basically what you could estimate. So, I mean, if you're working full-time, nonstop, in theory you could do that within a couple of days, but you're not going to be spending a full 24 hours with them right off the bat. You might be an hour here, an hour there. If your appointments are just 1 hour, that's 24 appointments you need to have with that buyer. If your appointments are 2 hours, on average, that's 12 appointments you need to have with that buyer. So now, what about with the seller? With the seller, again, this NAR statistic, so 24 hours to close a buyer. To close a seller, you're looking at 8 hours of working time. Now, that's a lot more manageable. You could think of the numbers here. You could close 3 different sellers in the time it would take you to close 1 buyer. And chances are they're going to be around the same price for all of these. It's not like that one buyer that's on average taking 24 hours is going to be a property that's valued 3 times as much, or that the commission is going to be 3 times as much. The commission, the payout, unless you do have difference in property values, is going to be pretty much the same. You're probably going to be charging the same amount working with buyers as you are with sellers. Now, there's little details that could kind of change that, how much is being paid out on a listing and so on and so forth. But, I mean, we're not talking a difference of a huge value here. So it takes 3 times as much time to work with buyers. Now, for all you guys out there that are new to real estate, don't scoff at the buyers and don't snub your nose at the buyers, because those buyers, you got to put in the work, but they're still willing to use you and get you paid a commission. So take whatever business you could get. And we're actually going to do next week's episode, we're going to work on the buyer consultation. And the buyer consultation, I think that's going to be a lot more foreign to a lot of you guys out there, even of you guys that are already in real estate, because I don't really see this buyer consultation be utilized nearly as much as it should. But we'll talk about that next week. This week we're talking about listing appointments. So we already identified the why we want to master a listing appointment. Because this is an opportunity to get a client that's going to take 8 hours on average to close. 8 hours until payday, basically. Again, it's not 8 hours straight. It's going to be time that's spread out over the course of a month, 2 months, 3 months, however long it's going to take to go through this whole process of this here. But going through this process, it's about 8 hours worth of your time. And a big chunk of that time is going to be in the listing appointment. At least an hour, if not 2 hours, are going to be in that initial listing appointment phase. Probably closer to about the 2-hour mark if you're doing it right and going through all the steps and really getting everything knocked out. Because if you set yourself up good with a listing appointment, everything's going to fall into place afterwards. It's going to be a lot easier afterwards to make sure all the other ducks are staying in a row. So with the listing appointment, like I said, you're going out to the property to preview the property, convince the seller why they should use you. Now, there's a lot more to it than that. We're going to go over some questions on what you should be bringing, what that process is going to be looking like. We're going to be talking about, and really what to bring. I got a whole list written out here of things that you want to have, so stay tuned because we're going to be getting into that. So this is stuff, because being prepared for this is really the crucial key aspect. If you're prepared, there's really no reason you shouldn't get the deal when you go on a listing appointment. It's only if you're unprepared are they going to say, oh, you know what, I want to interview some other people, or oh, you know what, I'm not ready for it yet, or oh, you know what, sorry for wasting your last 2 hours. So you have to be prepared. That's really one of the key, essential, crucial things, and part of that is preparing yourself, being ready to go through and give this presentation and knowing what to do, what this process is going to look like. So we're going to talk about what to bring ahead of time. We're going to be talking about the whole process, because it's not just say, hey, let's sit down and let's talk about why you should use me. You got to get them to warm up to you a little bit. We're going to talk about some specifics with that, something I actually just thought of I want to write down right here. So this is a really great show. I'm really excited to talk about listing appointments because they're such a crucial way to build your business. And I emphasize that, building your business, not just the clients now, but this is going to help you ensure future clients. By doing these listing appointments, it's really going to help you grow your real estate business, because by capturing these listings, now let's think about, let's back up, let's rewind a little bit. So with real estate, what's your product? What is your product in real estate? You might be saying, John, there's no product. It's a service business, John. It's not a product business. That's true. It is a service business, but it's also a product business. What are you selling? A house. That's your product. That's your inventory. If you go into a store and they don't have any inventory, they're going to be like, oh, there's no reason for us to even come into the store because there's no inventory. So that's why you want to not only have one listing, but you want to carry multiple listings, as many listings as you could handle at a time. And I would set a goal for yourself. If you want to start out, try to aim for 10. And then once you get 10, go to 20. Then once you get 20, go to 50. When you get 50, go to 100. And try to carry as many listings as you can. But today we're going to be focusing on one listing appointment and mastering that one listing appointment, because you get one down, you get one under your belt, and then you're going to be able to kind of go out there and you'll have your system down. You'll be confident going into these listing appointments. And the confidence is really key, because when you're confident going into these listing appointments, then you know what you're doing and you're ready to get everything all taken care of. So part of that confidence is having the knowledge. If you don't know what you're doing, it's really hard to be confident about everything. Yeah, you might be able to show up and say, hey, I'm John Carissimo, realtor. I'm a confident realtor. But then when they start asking you some questions, I don't care how confident you think you are. If you don't know the answers to the questions they're asking, they could see through that, even if you're pretending to be confident with this here. It is little things, body language and all kinds of stuff like that people naturally pick up on, where they don't have to be some sort of FBI body language reader to figure out what it is that you're really saying. So when you know what you're doing and you're there to make sure you're going to wow your clients, everything's going to really fall into place. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So we're going to cover what you need to bring, why you need to bring it, and then we'll just go over some tips, too, that really you need to know. Now, before we go ahead and jump into any of this stuff here, I know we got a lot of people on here that are watching this show that already are in real estate, that aren't new to real estate. So any of you guys out there watching this show that have been in real estate, and I don't care if you've been in the real estate for 1 year, if you've been in there for 20 years, share the knowledge, spread the wealth. What are some things that you do in your listing appointments that you think is your secret sauce? Or maybe you don't want to give away your secret sauce, but at least give us some tips, because there's a lot of new agents out there that are wondering what it is that I need to do, and overall, this will help make the real estate industry a lot better. It'll make your job easier, because the people will know what to expect when they've dealt with somebody in the past who was a professional. So I want to hear from you guys. My favorite part of this show is hearing from the students and the viewers watching these shows, is what it is that you do, or even if you're not in real estate, tell me what you think you would want to do at a listing appointment. So I'm going to be looking for these comments. I've got the chat loaded up on Facebook, the chat loaded up on YouTube. We're going to be right back after this short commercial break, so stay with us. You're watching State of Real Estate. When you look back on your real estate career, you'll remember the moment you decided to begin this journey. The moment when you finally decided it was time for change. The moment when you decided it was time to take charge. The moment that changed the direction of your life forever. Now is that moment. Hey, I'm John Chrisman. I'm here to tell you today about Ask the Instructor. This is every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time. I'm going to be live answering your questions. So tune in. You can get on Facebook, on facebook.com/Tampa School, youtube.com/Tampa School, or also on our Success Center, tampaschoolofrealestate.com/success. You'll find those links in the description for this video. Make sure you tune in every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. I'm John Cursmo, and I look forward to answering your questions. Need help preparing for your exam? We've got you covered. Join us for a structured weekend review class where we'll cover the topics you need to know to pass your class and state exams. Class sizes are limited, so reserve your seat now by calling 813-928-0106 or registering online at tampaschoolofrealestate.com. Have you been thinking about starting a real estate career, but are struggling to find the time to go back to school? Allow us to introduce our revolutionary online course platform. At the Tampa School of Real Estate, we have used our years of education experience and student feedback to bring you the finest and best online course. Visit tampaschoolofrealestate.com. That's tampaschoolofrealestate.com, or call us at 813-928-0106. That's 813-928-0106 to learn more and register for our online course today. After the show, be sure to visit tampaschoolofrealestate.com. Again, that's tampaschoolofrealestate.com, where you'll find all the information you need to start your career in real estate. Also, be sure to check out our Success Center, where you'll find helpful tips for building a successful real estate career. Hey, if you liked the show today, be sure to hit like and subscribe and post your comments. Thanks so much for watching. Hey, welcome back to State of Real Estate. Pardon the echo there. We're just making sure the sound is working, and it sounds like it is going good today. So today we're talking about listings. We already, before I went on the break, we talked about what they are and why you need to do them. So just to recap on that, a listing appointment is where you're going out to convince the seller to list a property with you. So that's what they are. Now, why do you want to do these? Well, number one, to get sellers, to get clients, so that's number one. But why do you want to make sure that you know this process and you understand? Because it's very easy to get a listing appointment if you know what you're doing. If you have a system that you do this, then this, then this, and you know what the next step is, and you have this all planned out ahead of time, it's very easy to go on these listing appointments. And even if you leave without the listing, because I'm not going to tell you you're going to get the deal every single time. Now, hopefully that's the case. In a perfect world, it would be. But there's going to be things that come up. Maybe they're not ready yet. There's something that maybe you can't close them right there. But they might just not literally be ready. They might want to sell their property, but just in the future. It's just not right at this moment. They're starting to think about it now, and you don't want to give up on these people. So you want to continue to follow up with them after the fact. So that's why you need to do these. And on top of that, if you're thinking about, should I try to target sellers or buyers? If you're brand new to the real estate industry, you want to take everything it is that you could get. Take your sellers, take your buyers. But once you're at a point where you're maybe investing some money in some marketing and how you could do this, you want to maybe focus a little bit more on the listing side. Now, this does depend on the market as well, whether it's a buyer's market or a seller's market. But if you want to advertise to listings and sellers to get listings, you're going to have that time frame of only 8 hours on average to work with a seller versus 24 hours working with a buyer. That means you could close 3 buyers in the time it would take or 3 sellers, I should say, not 3 buyers. It'll take a lot longer to close 3 buyers. You could close 3 sellers in the time it would take to close 1 buyer. So that's what we're talking about today. And first thing I want to touch on here are really the key things that you want to bring to the listing appointment. Because like I said, this whole process is about being prepared. You need to be prepared for this listing appointment. If you're not prepared, you might as well not even go on the listing appointment because you're probably going to screw it up in some way. You don't want to do that. You want to be prepared. You want to know what you're doing. But part of that is also making sure you take a couple of minutes to get yourself ready, get yourself presentable, and get all the documents that you need. We're going to be talking about the specifics here. So first thing that I want to touch on, confidence. Yes, you need to bring your confidence. Now, like I said, part of the confidence is going to really come after you have a lot of these things and you know what you're doing, especially after you've been on a couple of these listing appointments because you'll know what it's like. But in order to build this confidence, especially if this is the first time that you're going on one of these listing appointments, what you need to do is go through and practice this. practice first in a mirror. Practice in the mirror with what you're saying. There's the whole presentation aspect, which we're going to talk about this process in the future part of the show here. So we're going to be talking about the process, but right now what you need to bring is the confidence, and you want to practice this in the mirror. You want to make sure what you're saying makes sense. You want to make sure you're saying things in the right way. Notice again here how I'm inflecting my voice in certain patterns. And when you're talking one-on-one with somebody, you need to do the same thing. Because if you're just talking in a monotone voice and you're maybe not even a real easy way for you to not be confident or not look confident is talking in a quiet, monotone voice like I'm doing right there. So you want to look confident. You want to look like you know what you're doing. You want to appear to be larger than life. So when people see you in person, they're like, oh, wow, there he is. There's that realtor that sent us the emails. I recognize his face. Oh, look, there he is. And then you go and meet them. And if you're there talking like this and you're like, oh, it's great to meet you. Let's go look at the house. They're going to be like, oh, okay, all right. You need to practice that confidence. So work on yourself in the mirror. Talk to yourself in the mirror. Don't worry about people thinking you're crazy when they see you talking to yourself in the mirror. This is really going to help you prepare. Now, once you've graduated from the mirror, maybe you want to go into actually recording yourself. And you don't have to do anything fancy. Just pull out your phone and set it up and then give your presentation into the phone. So you can go back and watch it and say, oh, you know what, I should do this time. And take notes on what it is that you're doing right or wrong so you can really practice and hone in on what it is that you want to perfect. So when you get to the listing appointment, you're good to go. You'll be able to get appointments like bam, 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 bam. That's your goal. You want to get appointments quickly, and having this process down, this negates a lot of this having to kind of think about things and whatnot, because you look like you know what you're doing. So have the confidence, and once you've gone to record yourself, go one step further. Practice in front of your friends or family. Find somebody who's willing to be your pretend seller and try to sell them. And now let them give you some objections, some things that you could try to overcome, some complaints about why they don't want to use you or why they don't want to sell their house now or whatever it is that they're thinking about. So you have practice actually dealing with the person, because you can be great in front of the mirror, but then if you haven't practiced going in front of a person and they give something that goes off from your script, that you're going to be lost. You're going to be like, oh, I don't know what to say. And then you might just run out and say, sorry, I need to go turn off my car. And like, well, your car's off. You've been in here for like 45 minutes. So have your confidence. Now, part of this confidence comes with dressing professionally. You want to dress for success. And there's the whole saying, you can never be too overdressed. So have yourself look presentable at the very least. You know, if I walked into a listing appointment like this, you can probably notice I'm already missing something. And what would that something be? I'm missing a name tag. I'm missing something that shows that I'm a realtor, or at the very least, maybe a little realtor pin. You want to have something so you look the part. You want to look the part, and you want to look professional and presentable. So that's such a key aspect of this. And you don't have to go out and buy, again, especially if you're starting off, you got to pick in your battles of what it is that you're going to invest money in. You don't need to go out and go buy a $10,000 new wardrobe because you need to look good. That'll come later. That's a luxury for once you have a couple deals under your belt. And you'll look professional. Go get yourself a dress shirt if you don't have a dress shirt. Or even if you have a polo shirt, you might be able to pull that off in certain cases as well. But just something. I mean, you don't need it could be the same dress shirt that you're wearing for every appointment until you get a deal closed. I mean, hopefully you just make sure you wash it. But at the very least, have a name tag. Those name tags are going to cost you like $10. If you don't like wearing name tags, go get a shirt embroidered. But do one of the two. Either embroidered shirt or a name tag. Something that's going to say, hey, I'm the professional. So you want to look professional when you show up at the door. Now, a couple of the other things that you want to bring here. So the first one I want to talk about, and this is really the biggest thing. I'm probably going to try to go through these in the order of what I would say would be most important. And yes, that's why I wanted to cover confidence and the way you look first and foremost. Because even if you haven't done any preparation, if you look good showing up to that appointment, they're going to be like, oh, this is the guy, this is the girl I want to use. She looks professional, he looks professional. This is the person I want representing my home and representing my best interest. So if you show up looking the part, you're already halfway there. So that's such a big, key, crucial aspect. But now the next thing, you want to, again, this goes back to the preparation, is all of your contracts, all of your paperwork, you want to have that. So all of your paperwork, you want to show up with all of your paperwork, not just with blank paperwork, with the paperwork already filled out. So get in there, get your listing agreement out, and start filling in everything like you need it to fill out. Put in the address, put in all this information except for the stuff you really don't know yet. There could be the listing price for the property that maybe you don't know, maybe that you leave it blank. But all this stuff that's just your introductory, preliminary, premise kind of information that's in the listing agreement, have that written up ahead of time. And now you might be saying, John, well, what if I don't get the listing appointment? Why would I waste all this time filling out the documentation? Why do I need to go fill out the contract before I need to get the contract first? No, get the contract filled out, because if you're thinking like that, you're not going to get the listing. If you're thinking that when you go in there that, oh, I don't want to waste time on this because, I don't even have a contract yet. I'm not going to invest any of my time and effort and money until I have a signature on the paper. That might work sometimes. But folks, I'm going to tell you, if you're just waiting to get that contract signed before you start doing any work for your seller, you're going to have a lot harder time getting that contract signed. Getting that contract signed is just going to seem like just one extra step in the chain of events, and they're just going to sign right off on it when you've already started working for them and they already see that you're there and you're prepared. So you want to have this paperwork drawn up ahead of time, and when you pull it out of the listing presentation, you can say, hey, look, I've already gone through and drawn up all the paperwork. We just need to fill in the price here and a couple of these other terms that we talked about already, and then I just need you to sign right here, here, and here. But now, should you then go and sign? Absolutely not. When you fill out all this paperwork ahead of time, you sign off on it. So you already have the basic information that you already know before you go on the appointment, and you also want to already have initialed and signed off on all the necessary pages that require your signature. You want to do this ahead of time. Number one, especially if this is the first time you've been on a listing appointment and maybe you're not familiar with this listing contract. This way you can kind of have this all done ahead of time. You can talk to your broker about anything it is that you don't understand, because this is a legally binding document. So you want to make sure that you're not putting yourself at a disadvantage because it's not filled out correctly. So you want to maybe go over this with your broker, whoever it is that you get to help you out, this real estate professional, to look over this contract and make sure everything looks good. And then you take it out to your seller, you fill in the couple little last details, have them sign off on it, and boom, you're done. Maybe do a little closing technique. Give it to them with the pen on the paper and say, here you are, a pen right on the line. That's a little trick you could do. Anything like that, but have this documentation ready to just pull out of your briefcase, pull out of your bag, whatever it is that you're using. If you're just bringing a folder in there, that's fine as well. I mean, it's not going to look as professional, but hey, like I said, the briefcase, that's a luxury. You'll get that once you have some money. So, and you'll notice here, I'm all about bootstrapping, because I hate seeing agents go and run themselves broke by spending all these things that they think they need. All you need is appointments. If you have appointments, the rest will come into place. So that's the only thing you absolutely need. All these other things are really kind of luxuries with all this other stuff. Now, there's stuff that doesn't cost you any money. Yeah, it might cost you a little bit to print out these contracts and whatnot, but you could probably use the printer at your broker's office for free. If your broker's charging you for the printer, then you've got bigger problems. Anyways, so you want to have all the paperwork filled out, you want to have it signed, you want to have it initialed, you want to have everything all squared away, so you can just bring it out, look prepared, present it to them, and say, hey, you just need to sign here, here, and here. That way I can get started right away marketing your property and getting this price that we were looking for. So that's one of the big things. Like I said, have all your paperwork signed out and ready to go. Now, some of the other things, because we want to, and this is called the assumptive close type of process. The assumptive close type of process basically means that you're going into the property already assuming that they're going to use you. And that's the attitude that you want. You don't really want to leave it up to question, because if you're questioning yourself, don't you think they're going to question it too? If you're questioning whether or not they want to use you, you're like, if you want to use me, then I just need you to sign right here. No, that shouldn't even be the question. And again, this goes back to the confidence. If you're confident in your abilities to market and sell this property, then it's clear in your mind that you're the only choice. Now you just have to present that to them that you're the only choice in their mind. So a couple of other things. We have the paperwork already done, already and ready to go. We're prepared. We bring that out. But now some other things to be prepared. A temporary sign. You want to have some sort of temporary sign. Now, I've talked before about making sure that when you first list a property, that it is picture perfect, that everything is perfect when that listing first goes live. You want everything perfect when the listing first goes live, not only in the description, but also in the pictures, but also in the price of the property, because that's when the most eyeballs are going to be on your property. Most people are going to be looking at the property when it's first listed. So you want to have everything ready. So maybe you could put a for sale sign out right away. And with this, again, don't go break the bank on all this stuff. I'm not telling you need to get any of this stuff here. If you don't have one of these yet, borrow one from somebody. Borrow one from your broker. I'm sure your broker has extra signs. And if you're looking to choose a broker, this should be questions that you're asking. Whether or not the broker has signs for me to use when I go out and look at to get listings on properties. So have some sort of temporary sign. And if you want to go spend money and order them, go on like Vistaprint or one of these websites and just get the little things that you stick in the ground. It doesn't even have to be the big fancy like post ones out there. I mean, you can get those posts put in for like $20 if you don't want to dig the hole yourself. But again, those are luxuries. And so until you're making some money, you got to really put in some sweat equity with all this. But you want to have a temporary sign. So you want to have this temporary sign all ready to go so you can stick that right out there. And again, you're coming prepared. You're coming ready. When you show up at the door, you want to have these things with you. You want to have all of your paperwork, whether that's in your briefcase or just the manila folder or however it is that you're bringing it in there. And you want to have that sign. Now, you set that sign out outside. If you set that sign down right outside their door, they're going to be like, oh, wow, this person's showing up. They're ready for business. So they see you walking up with that and you say, oh, I'm just going to set this right here. And they might already be getting some ideas saying like, hey, why are you bringing the sign to this property where we haven't even signed with you yet? Oh, yeah, I just brought this because I know if you're like any of my other clients, once I tell you what I have to tell you and what I'm going to do for you, there's going to be no question about it. And you're going to want that sign out there as soon as I leave. So boom, you're already like framing the expectation of this appointment that, wow, this person, you might come across a little bit arrogant, and you want to walk that fine line to make sure you're coming across as confident and professional, not arrogant and a know-it-all, because that could easily go one way or the other, and it comes down to really preparing yourself, making sure you're confident in the way you're saying things. If you're confident in everything else and you really do wow them, then what you're saying is true. It's not arrogance if what you're saying is true. If what you're saying is true, and I mean you're not being like insulting to them or anything about it, then that's not really arrogance at all. That's just you knowing what you're doing and you being a true professional. So you want to show up with that temporary sign. You want to show up with a lockbox as well. Now, the lock boxes, they cost money as well. So maybe talk to your broker, see if you can borrow one from your broker. Or if you have the money to spend, you can go invest yourself in a lock box. So you want to have these lock boxes, and you're bringing that in with you. I wouldn't leave that outside because those cost like $100, and you don't want anybody, some kid grabbing it thinking, oh, look at this thing, this is cool, and then go throwing it in a lake or something. So keep that with you. Bring that inside. It's okay to bring that inside, but the sign, you can stick that outside. It might even have some dirt on it or something. If it does, clean it off, but you want to show up with that so they see that and have it out front because that's ultimately where it's going to be. Don't stick it in the yard right away, but just leave it at the door and maybe prop it up against the wall by the door or something like that. So that way they could see it when you're walking in there and they know what you're coming here to do, and you already have that expectation framed. The key thing here is all about the open and honest communication between the two of you. To understand what it is that's maybe holding them back, you want to have open and honest communication. If you have open and honest communication with the seller, it's going to really keep you from having to try to play detective and figure out what it is, the reason why they really don't want to sign the paperwork yet or anything like that. So have your temporary sign, have your lockbox. Couple other things. You want to have your presentation ready. We're going to be talking about this process after the next break here, but the process really it's really a long process. Like I said, it's not just sitting down and going over your presentation right off the bat. There's a whole process to this, but you want to have your presentation ready. Get yourself a PowerPoint or something that's going to look professional. What you could do if you have an iPad, or even you could do this on your phone. I mean, this phone is basically like an iPad. It's huge, so you could do something like that, but you could have the presentation, a PowerPoint or whatever you want to do, but just something you could flip through that's going to look professional. Some nice graphics, some nice pictures, some key talking points for you to kind of go through, just so they're not just having to look at your face. I don't care how pretty and handsome it is that you think you are. You want to have something else for them to look at as well, because they'll get bored of just staring at your face. So having that presentation, you can kind of go through. You can bring your laptop. It looks really good on a tablet or something like that. Or if you want to go old school, just print out this stuff and give them a nice little booklet. Go to Staples or Kinko's and get it bound for a couple bucks with a nice little spiral binding with a clear cover, or do it yourself. All kinds of different ways you can get creative with the presentation, but you want to come prepared with your presentation. We're going to be going through the process and talking about some of the things that you should have in this presentation, but that's really a key aspect of this, having your presentation. You want to have your CMA and your comps. Not just a CMA, but also the comparable properties and the neighborhood. And the key thing, you want to stay within the same neighborhood here when you're looking at this, but you want to have this comparative market analysis prepared. You want to have the comps in the neighborhood, so when they start questioning the value you're coming up with, you can explain it to them by going through and showing them all of these comps that are out there. You don't want to just solely go off of whatever Zillow is saying or whatever Realist is saying for the value of the property is this. You might want to look at that in greater detail, maybe make some adjustments even if they're necessary, and then now you can explain to this why this is the value of the property. But you want to make this more of a process just than saying the value is $250,000. That's what we need to sell it for. No, you don't want to sell it for that amount? Well, you're not going to sell the property then. Now you're making conflict with them. You don't want to make conflict with them. You want to agree with your client, and you want to make them agreeable to what it is that you're saying. So when you explain to them why the value is what it is, because you're going through this whole process and you're describing how this is coming up with, and you're showing them the comps and so on and so forth, this is going to make a little bit more sense when we talk more about the process. So let's take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the process you're going through to basically get this listing, to get this deal done. So stay with us. I'm John Carissimo. You're watching State of Real Estate. When you look back on your real estate career, you'll remember the moment you decided to begin this journey. The moment when you finally decided it was time for change. The moment when you decided it was time to take charge. The moment that changed the direction of your life forever. Now is that moment. Need help preparing for your exam? We've got you covered. Join us for a structured weekend review class where we'll cover the topics you need to know to pass your class and state exams. Class sizes are limited, so reserve your seat now by calling 813-928-0106 or registering online at tampaschoolofrealestate.com. Have you been thinking about starting a real estate career, but are struggling to find the time to go back to school? Allow us to introduce our revolutionary online course platform. At the Tampa School of Real Estate, we have used our years of education experience and student feedback to bring you the finest and best online course. Visit tampaschoolofrealestate.com. That's tampaschoolofrealestate.com, or call us at 813-928-0106. That's 813-928-0106 to learn more and register for our online course today. After the show, be sure to visit tampaschoolofrealestate.com. Again, that's tampaschoolofrealestate.com, where you'll find all the information you need to start your career in real estate. Also, be sure to check out our Success Center, where you'll find helpful tips for building a successful real estate career. Hey, if you liked the show today, be sure to hit like and subscribe and post your comments. Thanks so much for watching. Hey, welcome back to State of Real Estate. I'm John Carissimo, and this show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. If you're thinking about starting or enhancing your real estate career, give us a call. The phone number is 813-928-0106. Again, that's 813-928-0106. So we're here today talking about listing appointments. This is State of Real Estate. Every Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time, we come to you to help you mastermind and grow your real estate business. So what we're talking about is listing appointments. We already talked about kind of some of the things that you need to bring, and we're going to add a couple of things to the list as we now go through the process of this listing appointment. What it's going to look like from when you show up at the property to when you leave the property, hopefully leaving with the signature and so on and so forth. So you want to show up prepared and so on and so forth, have all of your stuff ready, but then you go there, you go ring your doorbell, and they're going to answer the door, and they're going to say, hey, how can I help you? And you're going to say, oh, I'm John Carissimo, I'm the realtor that you called. Now that's already off to a bad start. Already off to a bad start. Why is this off to a bad start? What's wrong here? That seemed like it was perfectly fine. Well, the big thing that's wrong is they don't know you. They open the door and they say, how can I help you? That shouldn't be the case at all. They should not be saying, how can I help you, when you show up at the door for a listing appointment. Now, if you're out there door knocking, prospecting, that's perfectly fine because these people probably don't know you. But now with listing appointments, they need to know you ahead of time. So before you even get to the property, you want to send them maybe some sort of reminder the day before. Send them an email with, at the very least, your picture in the email. Have your picture in the signature so they can see you. Maybe you've met them before and they've already are going to know who you look like, but you still want to send this reminder probably at least a day ahead of time and maybe even one the morning of, but just something to say, hey, I'm still coming out at this time today. Look forward to meeting with you, blah, 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 blah. All that, like that basic stuff that you want to have just to kind of build some anticipation for what's to come, but also so they know who it is that they're going to be answering the door to. And when they come out looking at the door, you want them to say, oh, hey, John, welcome, come inside. And that's completely different. This whole process of the listing appointment, the goal is, because these people are typically going to be strangers. Now, if you're dealing with friends and family here, this is the exception. But if you're dealing with just a normal everyday client, these are strangers that you're going to be talking to. And you don't want to be a stranger because no one wants to trust a stranger. You've probably been told by your parents growing up, oh, don't talk to strangers. Don't get away from them. You don't know who that is. Get out of here. No, keep to yourself. And that's the way most people are programmed to be. Now, there's exceptions to that rule, but most people don't like strangers. So you don't want to be a stranger. You want to escalate yourself. So what does that process look like? Well, first you're a stranger. Then what comes after stranger? You're an acquaintance. So an acquaintance, that's definitely better than a stranger, but that's ultimately not where you want to be. So you go from a stranger to an acquaintance. You want to really build this into a friend. You really want to build this into somebody that feels like there's somebody that you could trust. That you're maybe somebody that they would leave like their kids with because you trust them so much. Maybe that doesn't go that far, but you wanted them to be a very open, honest communication between the two of you, and that's going to help build you up to that friendship level. So you want to go from stranger to acquaintance to friend. And you really want them to know who you are and trust you, and then also be able to tell their friends who you are, because boom, referral business, you want that. So make sure that you get to that friendship level. But now, how do we get to this friendship level? So that's the first part. We already started off on the right foot. If you give the reminders ahead of time, you have your picture in here, and here's something, if you really want to go the extra mile, make yourself a quick little introductory video. You'll see some of the top agents out there, go on YouTube and look at it. They all have these little introductory types of videos. Now, again, you don't need to have some Hollywood blockbuster production introduction. I mean, if you're strapped for funds and you don't want to like go and spend money for a videographer or whatever it may be, just take out your phone, record a little selfie video. And if you're doing that and you're sending a personalized video, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, coming out to show your house tomorrow. Can't wait to meet you guys. Look forward to seeing you. If you send out a little personalized video like that, either send it through a text message or send it through email, that's going to be, that's what friends do. You think of this whole Snapchat concept as something like that. People will appreciate that. It doesn't have to be long. Just something real quick, 7, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, I think is the cutoff on normal texting. If they got an iPhone, you can really send them hours worth of video, I think. But you don't want to do that. You just want to have something real quick. Hey, it's John Carissimo here. Can't wait to meet you guys tomorrow at 1 p.m. And what you're doing here, you're making sure they know who you are, and you're confirming that appointment so you don't show up and waste your time knocking on the door and they forgot about it and they're not even home. So you don't want that. So this is your first step on starting off to building, because now you're already showing up and you're not even a stranger. It's that you're that much closer to becoming a friend with them because you're not a stranger anymore, even just showing up at the door. When they recognize you at the door, you're no longer a stranger to them. And that's the first step to closing the deal, to getting this listing contract signed, is making sure at the very least you're not a stranger. Because if you leave and you're still a stranger to them, they're not going to want to do business with you. So you need to escalate from that stranger level to an acquaintance, and that could very easily be done before you even show up on the appointment. It takes time for these transitions to occur, so get yourself started early. Start off before you even go to the appointment. Send them that personalized video and say, hey, I can't wait to meet you guys tomorrow. I'm John Carissimo, blah, 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 but so on and so forth. So send out that little personalized video. And you can get creative with this, but like I said, don't put too much time and effort into this. There's a lot better ways you could spend your time. This should really be just as quick as, hey, John Carissimo, can't wait to meet you guys tomorrow. Coming to your house at 1 p.m. Can't wait to see it. Can't wait to meet you. See you tomorrow. Something like that, just basic. They just record it right into your phone and you're good, you're done. Don't waste too much time on that. It's an essential part, but it's something that should be done very quickly. It does not have to be perfect. It's just merely to introduce yourself so when you show up at the door, you're no longer a stranger. So now when you get into the property, you want to definitely, when you get there, shake their hands. Now, another key thing that you want to make sure that you have there before you even go to the listing appointment, if this is spouses that own the property, in Florida there's a lot of laws that make it so both the spouses have to sign off on the contract. In very limited circumstances will a spouse not have to sign. Most cases a spouse will have to sign a listing contract for it to be enforceable. So what that means, before you can get this contract signed and have an actual contract, you need to have both signatures. So you want to make sure you make arrangements when you're making this appointment that they're both going to be there, that both Mr. and Mrs. Smith are going to be there, not just Mr. Smith, because if Mr. Smith makes a decision without Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Smith is not going to be happy with Mr. Smith. So you want to have both of them there because if you're not making the presentation to both of them, you're still a stranger to the other spouse. So you want to have both of them there, really have the whole family there, get to meet their kids, get to meet their dogs, find out what it is that they care about, and just be a genuine person with them, and they'll appreciate that, and they'll want to do business with you because when you're genuine, that's inching you closer to that friendship level. Now, like I said, you don't want to go jump straight into the listing presentation. You don't want to go straight into the listing presentation. What you want to do first when you get to the property, after you're in the property and you've greeted them and you shook hands and so on and so forth, you got your sign sitting outside, you have all your stuff with you, you want to have them, give me the tour of the property. And now think of this is what friends do. You go to your friend's house, and you're like, give me the grand tour, or something along those lines. And then that's what you want to do. You want to treat them like they're your friend. You want to still be professional and still be a salesperson here, but you want to be a genuine person and really try to make it to that friendship level. So, give me the tour of the property. Now, why do you need the tour of the property? Can't you already know everything you need to know about the property from online, and you already know what it's going to sell for and what you need to price it at. So why do you need to go tour the property? This is an essential part to when you're tying everything from your listing presentation back into the property. And that's the key here. Not only do you have to know the client, you also have to know their property that they're trying to sell. So you want to have them give you the tour of the property. And now as they give you the tour, you want to take some time doing this tour for a couple of reasons. Well, you want to have your notepad with you. Get yourself a little questionnaire printed up or some sort of little sheet you could do. Have it on a clipboard or just bring a notepad if you want to just take some basic notes at the very least. But you want to go through every single room. Bring a tape measure with you. You need to bring a tape measure. So you want to bring a tape measure. As you go through the rooms in the property, you want to get the measurements of every single room. Now you may be looking at me, well, why do I want the measurements? Aren't they going to look at me weird if I'm trying to measure the rooms in their property? Yeah, it might be a little bit awkward at first, but you have to explain to them why you're doing that. And now when you have answers to why you're doing what you do, when they don't know what you're doing, guess what that's making you look like? That's making you look like a professional. And that's what you want to be. You want to be a professional and you want to be a friend. Those are the two different scorecards you're trying to build up with these people. You want to build that relationship with them because contacts turn into contracts when you have the R, which is the relationship. So you need to go from the contact to the contract to add the relationship in, but you also need to have the professional level as well. If you're measuring the rooms and you don't have an answer why you're measuring the rooms, guess what that looks like in the professional meter? Ooh. No professionalism. You need to look like you're a professional, so you need to have answers to why you're doing these things. So why are you going through measuring all the rooms and taking notes on that? Well, you need to take notes on that to confirm the information that you pulled up on the property. You can explain them, maybe even pull out your little realist report and say, hey, well, Mr. Smith, come check this out here. So this is what I've gotten from the public records here, but you can see it leaves these rooms blank. And for me to make it's saying that the property value is in this range here, but I'm not sure about that. I need to reconfirm some of this stuff and use my professional expertise to make sure that that's a true, accurate number, to make sure we're getting you guys the most value for this property, but also to make sure we could sell the property quickly. So you're going through and you're measuring this, you're confirming the information, and at the very least, you're going to need this information when you go to put this in the MLS. Now, you want to maximize the time you're spending at this property, so when you're out there in the property, you don't have to come back to the property for little things like measuring the rooms, because you're going to have to do that to put a property in the MLS. You have to have measurements of the room. And now you could use one of those laser measurers, that's fine, but if you're trying to kind of build some rapport with them and spend some extra time with them, that's maybe where you want to use that. It's a bonding experience to use one of those old-fashioned tape measures. Why is it a bonding experience? Hey, do you mind holding this end of the tape measure over here? Now they're part of the process. So the laser tape measure just go boop, okay, this room's 12 feet. yes, you will look professional, but like I said, there's 2 meters. You want to look professional, but you also need to build that relationship. And if you're having that bonding moment, but hey, do you mind holding the tape measure over here? And then they're staying with you because they're helping. They're part of this process. So that's what you need to do when you're touring all these rooms. So you need the measurements. You want to take notes on it. Maybe even take a picture of each one of these rooms so you kind of have an idea of what they look like. Now, chances are, unless this is a low-end property, you don't want to use your cell phone camera pictures with this. You usually want to get a professional in there, pay the $50 or $100, whatever they're charging. You get these professional pictures done because that's going to help maximize property value. But if you're strapped on your budget, then maybe you can't afford one of these professional photographers. So take the pictures actually right there in the room for it and try to take good pictures, because you could use these pictures and just turn around, put it right in the MLS, and you're good to go. Again, you don't have to come back for any of this information. And now when you're going through and they'll say, well, don't you have to do this? Don't you have to do that? Again, you want to have answers to all these questions so you look like a professional. So you tour the property, you go through all of this, and you want to help build up that friendship level, to build up that relationship, and also show that you're professional when you're touring the property. Now, once you've gone through and toured the property really good, and now chances are, you could tour this property in just a couple minutes. I mean, you could probably, I don't care how big of a mansion it may be. I mean, if you're dealing with a 10,000 square foot property, it might take you 10 minutes to go walk through the entire property and see everything. But now when you're taking the measurements and taking notes and so on and so forth about all the properties, what the floor covering is in each one of these properties, again, you want to have your documents ready to go ahead of time with all the information that you need, so that way you know what you still have to get out of this property and you're taking the notes on it for each one of these individual rooms. So you get these measurements as you go tour through the property, but you want to try to aim for about a half hour that you take in the tour. Now, why do you want to spend a half hour in the tour? Well, there's statistics that have been done and studies that have been done that show that it takes about a half hour for somebody to consider you an acquaintance rather than a stranger. So even if they still think you're a stranger, you want to spend that time. And even if they think you're an acquaintance already, maybe they already recognize you, that's great, but you want to confirm that. You want to make sure they know that you're not just some stranger. So by spending this half hour with them, having this bonding moment with the tape measure and so on and so forth, this is helping you build that relationship, which they're going to be ready to see the contract, and they're going to trust you, and they're going to be honest enough to ask you the questions that are really their questions, which is what you need to get to for overcoming these objections that they may have. So once you've gone through the whole tour, like I said, you aim to take about a half hour to go through this tour. Then you want to go ahead and do your presentation. Now, where do you do your presentation? In the kitchen, at the kitchen table. That's where business gets done in most cases, in most people's homes. At the kitchen table. It's a nice place you could sit. Everybody could have a chair. You have a nice table to write on, to sign on, and so on and so forth. That's typically where you want it done. You don't want to go sit on a couch. You don't want to sit on a couch and be trying to do something that way, because in the couch, they're in relaxation mode. You don't want them with their feet up. They're there to make a business decision at this point regarding the sale of their property. So you need to do this in a professional as you could really get in the house type of setting. So the kitchen table is usually their go-to to where you pull out the contracts and have them signed right there. But you're not ready for the contracts yet. You're not ready for the contracts, even if they say, oh, you know what, John, well, we're ready to go. We're ready to roll. We want to sign the contract. Maybe you get the contract signed. But you want to be very careful walking into that territory, because if they do have objections, you might not be ready to overcome those objections yet. So you got to feel it out, because if they're saying, hey, let's get this contract signed and get this over with. I got a football game to watch. I got to go pick up my kids or whatever that may be. Okay, sure, sign right here. Get the signature, because you're done. You don't need to waste any more time there. But unless they're asking you for the sale, unless they're asking you for that signature, then you sit down, you do your presentation, you go through your PowerPoint, you go through your little book, you go through all this and explain to them what it is that they're going to do for you. What it is you're going to do for them, not what it is that they're going to. You want to maybe cover what they need to do as well, but primarily what you're going to do for them. What it is that you're going through on all the property, and this is where you tie in the aspects of that they found in the house. And when you're going through this listing report, how you could tie in these little bits of the house, you're like, I've never seen such beautiful bathroom fixtures in all of my days in real estate, or whatever it is that really is a standout feature of the property. Every property has some sort of standout feature. Even if it's in a slum and it's this old worn down house, there's probably something nice about it, or at least something that would be the standout feature on it. So you want to have that standout feature kind of worked into this, because chances are, if they have a standout feature, they're proud of that standout feature. So, and you want to find out what it is that they're proud of. You put in such beautiful floors in this property. I'm bringing in a professional photographer, or I've taken photography classes, and That could be as simple as going on YouTube and watching photography classes. They don't need to know that. I've been professionally trained as a photographer. I'm still an amateur, don't get me wrong, but I'm going to take some great pictures that are really going to showcase the beautiful floors in this property. They're going to really showcase the fixtures in your bathroom. They're going to really showcase the beautiful landscaping you have of the property. They're going to really showcase the high ceilings. Whatever it is that makes this property stand out, I'm going to really showcase the stainless steel appliances, or really showcase whatever it is that makes this property stand out. That's what you want to tie into your presentation, because that shows that you're making a unique, personalized approach for their property. You don't want to have the one size fits all, and this is what I do, 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 okay, sign here. Because they're going to be like, well, yeah, that seems great, but what are you going to do for us? So you want to tie it all into what ties directly into them. You want to tug on their little heartstrings for the things that and I'm not trying to be manipulative here, because they're probably proud of whatever it is this feature is of their property. They want to make sure that their agent can represent those items. That's what you're trying to prove here, that you're the best marketer of this property. So you need to prove that you're the best marketer by knowing and showing them that you already took note of all these things. That's why you're taking notes going on the tour. You want to take note of everything that you've seen on the property. Now, you're going through your presentation, you go ahead and explain to them, hey, this is what I saw here, and this is great. And maybe even have some little tips at the end of this stuff, too. And this is after you have the signature. After you have the signature and after you're ready to go, you leave them with maybe a to-do list saying, hey, before we can start getting some clients in here, if you wouldn't mind maybe getting the carpet shampooed or just little things like that to do. But this is after you get the signature, because you don't want to talk about this before, because they're going to want to do this before they sign off on this. If you say, well, you need to get these carpets shampooed, you need to get these walls painted, and blah, 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 blah. If that's the case and they need to do those things, give some time before the official start date of the listing agreement, and maybe you put a coming soon sign out on the front of the property or whatever it is that you want to do. But leave them the to-do list after the fact. Hey, if you could maybe, at the very least, maybe clean up these walls or paint them or get this carpet cleaned or whatever it is, the little things. You don't want to tell them, oh, you need to remodel this kitchen, because that's a big project that they're not ready to sell their property if that kitchen needs to be remodeled right away. So we're going through this, and we do our presentation. They're going to ask the question, well, what do you think the property value is worth? And that's where you start going through. You pull out your comparative market analysis, and you're going through and you're explaining and walking them through what it is and how you came up with the value. Notice what I said there, how you came up with the value. Again, you need to show value to them. You need to show why you're the expert that they want to use. So you need to show value to them. In order to do that, it needs to be why you came up with this. It doesn't matter that you pulled the report from from Realist or whatever system it is that you're doing, Cloud CMA or anything like that, to get the value of this property. Chances are you go in there and you tweak a couple little things before you're done. Maybe you make an adjustment here or there, which I highly recommend doing if it is required and if it is necessary. Because then you could explain to them, hey, this is a house down the street, and this is where you want to have those particular comparables. You want to show, hey, this is the house that's down the street that just sold a couple months ago. Did you guys go in there and check it out at all? No? Well, it's a really nice house, but what this house has that yours doesn't is this. So in order to do that, I had to do this adjustment, which affected the value in this way. Now it's no longer just a evaluation of what this is what it says. You're explaining to them and you're making them part of this process of explaining how you came up with the value. And when they're part of the process, again, they're on the same page with you. If you just pull up the report, this is what it says it's worth. $250,000, not a penny more. That's what we have to sell it for. You don't want to sell it for that. Well, guess what? The property's not going to sell. You don't want to be defensive with them. You don't want to start an argument. You want to walk them through, explain to them, educate to them why it is that this property is what it's worth. Okay, this is the adjustments that were made here. This property is worth more than your property because it has this. Now, your property has this, so that helps the value out a little bit here, but this property has this, which kind of pulls it down. So when you're making this explanation, and you could do this even if you're using one of these automated valuation report systems, you could go through and explain how this report is coming up with this value, because you want them on the same page with the value. You want to educate them and explain to them why this is the price, and explain to them that we need to price it right from the begin with. You don't want to go through the whole negotiation song and dance and say, hey, we're going to list the property higher because we know we're going to have to negotiate. You don't always have to negotiate. If you've got the property priced right, you can get a full price offer and get the property sold, especially if the market is right for that. So you could sell it for full price. Don't get it wrong. You could definitely sell the property for full price. So it's very crucial to price it right to begin with. And that's another thing you need to explain going through this whole listing presentation. And then once you've gone through and explained that and you have them on the same page, when you're done, or really through multiple steps of this, explaining the value, you need to reconfirm with them that they're getting this. Does that make sense to you? Does that seem accurate to you? You want to get their confirmation on this to get them on the same page with you, because if there's a question about this value, you're not ready to move on into the contract section. You have to have that value chapter closed before you can move on to the contract chapter. So if they have any sort of objection or complaint or concern about what value it is that you came up with the property, you have to address that before you can move into the contract. Because guess what? If they think the property is 260 and you're saying it's 225, that's a discourse. They're not going to sign the contract if you have that disconnect between the value. Now, that seems obvious. Well, yeah, if they say it's worth 260, I'm not going to move into the contract then. But how do you know that's what they are really thinking? You have to confirm with them and make sure they're on the same page with you. So you need to explain this as you go through, and the best way to do this is checking as we go through. So that makes sense. Did you see that house? Well, this one, it has that, which, I mean, you could agree that would increase the value, don't you think? And they're like, oh yeah, definitely, yep, that makes sense. You're the smart one here. You're the real estate agent. But as you go through this and explain it, it's going to help get them on the same page. And when they're on the same page, then you're ready to move into the contract. It's like, well, that's the value, and what we could do, I'm really eager to get started with you guys here. I've got a lot of this information that I need. What I'll need to get started today so we can start marketing this property is simple signatures here, 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 and here, and you're done. And they say, oh, well, I want to read this over. And that's the killer. When you have a 10, 15-page contract, I'm like, well, yeah, I want to read this over before I sign it. And it's like, I completely understand. I always read everything before I sign it as well. But let me point out one part right here, and you show them a part of your contract, whether it's something you have written into your listing agreement already, or it's an additional addendum that you add onto it, that you have a cancellation period. You want to have this cancellation period in there that says that they could cancel within whatever amount of time for any reason. So, look, I completely understand. I read everything before I sign it as well. But so we could get moving really quickly, and I'm on the same page with you guys here, I went ahead and just put this addendum in right away. So no obligation, no risk to you, no cancellation fees, no nothing. You go through, and if you read this and you don't like any of the stuff after you signed it, you just have to sign on this form right here, and that cancels everything out. So there you go. And they may still not even read it. Maybe they just wanted to say they wanted to read it. But if they do truly read it and they have questions about it, that's where you just kind of confirm these things and explain to what this means. And you'll probably never even have to use that cancellation form. But that cancellation form is there to give them peace of mind in the event that they don't like that. And if you want to sit there while they read through all this stuff, that's perfectly fine as well. There's a couple different ways you can handle this, but that's where you present your contract, you have them sign off on it, initial in all the appropriate places, give them all the additional paperwork that you're going to need to have them fill out before the property could get sold, but a lot of times you'll leave that with them and have them send it over to you once they finish all that. You get that contract signed, you're good to go, you shake their hands. That's maybe where you give them the to-do list. Hey, before you do that, could you just maybe tidy up this room, or you make sure you say these in a nice way. Don't say, yeah, that room's a dump, you need to clean that up. Maybe you just tidy up a little bit before I get some buyers in here, so they'll be really excited about buying it and living here, so on and so forth. But that's only after you have the contract signed. Then you go on your merry way, you get everything else working, but that's really the whole process of this listing appointment. You make your preparations beforehand. You have everything ready. You send out the emails and text message, the personalized videos, the picture, whatever it is, beforehand, so you're not a stranger walking in. You tour the property. Take your measurements, take your notes, so you really already have everything you need to put in the MLS system, and you don't have to go back to do any of that stuff. You have that already. You build the rapport with your client. You go sit down. You go through your presentation, explain what it is that you're going to do for them, and you tie in what it is about their property and how that fits into all of your presentation. You present the contract, you have them sign on the contract, you leave them with the additional paperwork, and you're good to go. And I know that there's a lot of little bits and pieces of all of this here that it's like, well, what about what part of the contract, or what is this, or what's going to be in my presentation, and so on and so forth. I mean, and with this, there's a lot of stuff you can find online, a lot of templates. We're going to be doing some more videos on this whole listing process for some of these more intricate details, maybe even do a sample type of listing presentation. So keep watching us. We're 12 noon every Friday. We do State of Real Estate to help you grow and mastermind your real estate business. The reason we started this show was to help our students not only succeed in passing the exam, but also succeed in building a successful real estate career. Because that's ultimately what we want you to do. If you're not in a successful real estate career, that's not good for us, because you don't come back to any of the post-licensing or continuing education classes if you're not in the real estate industry. We want to see you succeed, not only for that, but also because that gives us a warm feeling that makes us feel like we're making the world a better place, which is ultimately what we're trying to do. We're changing people's lives through real estate. I'm John Carismo. Thanks you guys for tuning in for State of Real Estate. Like I said, make sure you tune in next Friday, 12 noon Eastern time. Until then, I'll see you guys.